TVC News Celestina area has been monitoring the judgment in the Supreme Court since the early hours of the day. She joins me now live from Abuja for more on this development. What's the count right now as to the Supreme Court judgment, and how many more do we have to go?
Okay, well, Nifemi, we still have that of Rivers because judgment has not been delivered, and also that of Taraba. We're hoping next week the Supreme Court will fix a date, parties will be notified, and judgments will be delivered. Basically, we know all the appeal that was brought before the court in respect to these various states which you listed. The court dismissed the appeal, and they were different appeals from different states, different issues, but somewhat similar, and has to do with some alleged overvoting, non-compliance with the provisions of the Electoral Act, accreditation of voters, and disqualification, no qualification, nomination, sponsorship. And the court has set a precedent in these various issues and said that the law is settled, that when you are coming to the court to allege about voting, that there are materials that need to be presented by the petitioner or the appellant, that you need the voter register, the beavers, you also need the Form EC8 and EC40G to prove all these cases. So it's not enough to allege that there was overvoting or not compliance to the provisions of the Electoral Act. Nasarawa stood out today because the election of the governor was nullified at the trial court, and that was done because the tribunal relied on the evidences of witnesses produced by the PDP. But at the trial, at the appellate court, which is the court of appeal, said that the tribunal was wrong because 8 witness statements was not front-loaded when the petition was filed at the tribunal, and the Supreme Court has said that the law is 21 days, but when witness statements are not front-loaded, the court cannot rely on it. So these were the issues. The Supreme Court affirmed the elections of all the governors. The political structure in this state remains, and the court says that the law will be interpreted with what it is and not what it ought to be.
Shortly, we're also going to be reaching out to Godwin Agwam in Nasarawa State and Larry Adiemi Gumpe. Lupe Assam is also standing by in Kaduna. But very interesting the way these judgments have come in Celestina. As we speak now, all of the petitions, all of the election petitions, and all of the governorship election have been affirmed by the Apex Court. I was following your reporting earlier, and you mentioned that the Supreme Court wasn't at some point going into details. How burdensome has this been on the Apex Court in the past few days?
Well, Nifemi, we know that the court is not yet in its full complement. They still have about 10 more justices to swear in, so they're working more or less at the half capacity. Justice Kudura Kekereku, who led the panel for today, and also Justice Inyang Oko, gave summary of the judgment, knowing fully well that this is the final arbiter, and parties will no longer have a right of appeal to anywhere because there's no other court to appeal to. So it's just they gave the summary of the judgment, that when parties see the copy of the judgment, they will be able to go through it and see the reasons why the appeals were dismissed or in any case allowed. But today all appeals were dismissed. But one thing is for sure, that moving forward in our electoral jurisprudence, talking about the next general election, it's important for lawyers to guide their clients on the petitions they file. These things are very important, not to overburden the court. No lawyers want their fee or appearance fee or their charges, but it's not safe to say that they would use that to burden the court. When you know your client does not have the substantial evidence to prove his or her case, it's needless or rather pointless to come before the court, irrespective of what he or she says happened at the polls or the polling unit. When those things cannot be proven before the court hands will be tied. The court cannot do anything to help your case.
Some have called it an academic exercise. The impact that it's having, on the operation of the Supreme Court, perhaps we'll also talk about that shortly. Stand by, Celestina. Let's bring Lupe Assam from Kaduna. Lupe, what's the reaction in Kaduna where you are? How are stakeholders there reacting to the Supreme Court judgment?
I must tell you that this affirmation by the Supreme Court has now put to rest to all judicial matters as regards the governorship election in the state, and the governor will now sit down comfortably knowing that he has the mandate of over 730,000 people to govern them for the next 4 years. And I tell you, the environment is calm. People are going about their normal businesses. I don't think there's no tension. We have not received the threat of tension from any quarters of the state. So at the moment, the place is calm. Of course, the police are also carrying out routine patrols in the state. We will remember that the police in Kaduna State are not only trying to keep the policy calm, but they're also managing issues of insecurity. So the police are active, moving about the state, making sure that things are calm. And I must tell you, even after the appeal judgment, the governor called for even mild celebration among members of the institute. So the policy is calm. People are going about their normal business. And for now, we have not received any reports of tension from any quarters of the state.
House, as regards the Supreme Court judgment. We'll get back to Lupe Assam, standing by for us live in Kaduna for more updates as to how stakeholders there are reacting to the latest court judgment. Well, let's get back to our Abuja studio, where Judiciary correspondent Celestina Area is standing by. How soon can we hear from the Apex Court as regards the Rivers State petition?
Okay, well, with that of Rivers, the time frame given will last, I think, 25th or 26th of January. So the Supreme Court will honor before that day deliver the judgment. We know it's 60 days, and the court has heard it. Parties have adopted their processes. So the next step is for the court to deliver its verdict. But also moving forward, there's a lot of reforms that need to be done to our Electoral Act and also to reshaping our jurisprudence, because time and again, the issues here, although the petitioners or the appellants may know that they have a case, but because of the time frame given by law, 21 days for them to be able to prove their case, during the course of the petition, if they now decide or the need now arise for them to call someone else to prove their case, if a person's witness statement was not front-loaded when they filed their petition, the court would not admit it. It will become inadmissible. The court will not accord it any probative value. So a lot of things need to be checked, although some legal practitioners are calling for the creation of election petitions court, separate from our main court. So also that they will have enough time to adjudicate on election matters, and it will not also overburden our court, because other matters, other civil cases and criminal cases have been put on hold because the justices need to sit on the election matter due to the time frame.
So that's the area live for us in our Abuja studio. Thank you for the good job and the coverage this morning. We'll definitely get back to you for more updates subsequently. Godwin Agwam is standing by in Nasarawa State. Godwin, what's Nasarawa like this morning after the Supreme Court judgment?
As it stands now, Governor Abdullah Isule is the duly elected governor of Nasarawa State. But the decision of the Supreme Court has been greeted with some level of violence in Lafia, the capital of Nasarawa State. You could see along the Jos Road, some protesters, of course, supporters of the PDP would say, are protesting the judgment of the Supreme Court. And we also in some parts of Lafia where we have supporters of the APC, we've seen them jubilate over the judgment of the Supreme Court. One thing is certain is that we are yet to have a grip of what led to the decision of the Supreme Court since the summary judgment. But I do know for sure that at the Supreme Court, the judgment delivered there, of course, was upheld by the Supreme Court, was that there's no way a witness can give his witnesses without a witness statement on oath. That's what the appeal court, or some of the decisions the appeal court reached. And of course, they also said that the appeal court decided that the papers was dumped at the tribunal and was not displayed. That was the decision of the appeal court. So, and we've seen the Supreme Court upholding the judgment of the appeal court. So I believe that these are some of the things that they have decided on, and they have agreed that perhaps there was no overvoting in some of these cases that are alleged based on the appeal court judgment, which is being upheld by the Supreme Court.
When you say that the news was greeted by violence in some parts, what's the current situation there, and how are security agencies responding?
Because we've seen a massive deployment of security personnel here in Lafia, the capital of Nasarawa State, and of course other parts of the state. Yesterday, we saw military, the police, the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, and other security agencies around the state. And today we've seen them, even where these protests were being held, we saw them there trying to ensure that no life is being lost or any damage caused by the protesters. Of course, the protesters are only expressing their grievances as regards the outcome of the judgment of the Supreme Court.
Godwin Agwam live for us in Lafayette. Well, thank you for the updates. We're back with more stories from across the country after this break, everyone. Stay with us.